the English and the Europeans call it a caravan, but it's those small little trails that we all remember from. They were prevalent in America in the 1950s and 60s. They had names like Shasta and things like that before the big Winnebagos that block us in traffic now. And there was one that was actually a little canteen. And at some point, and I can't remember how far into the shoot mark, but at some point, I went because the crew, the Hungarian crew, would drink a tokay or a schnapps at about 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, we might be working till midnight. When they got me in that goddamn makeup, they wouldn't let me go. And I remember doing that the first time, and it made all the difference in the world. The Hungarian, hey, I got to drink, but the Hungarians were already doing it, and it was like this thing. And I remember then every day after that, I would start to go, and I'd see Bill, and I think I saw Mark. I can't remember when Mark went home earlier, and Stephanie, and we would all go in there around 3 or 4. We'd have a little cocktail, and there would be like half a dozen crew guys in there, and they would filter in and out, we'd filter in and out. But that made all the difference in the world. And our crew, our friends that were working with us, our Hungarian friends, while we were there, it was the first time since 1948 they were allowed to fly their colors and show the colors of their flag, because the Soviets had denied that. And that's not that long ago that this movie was made. You know, I had more hair then.
Yeah. So did I.
Yeah.
So did I.
And I just want to say, as the lead of the film, the star of the film, you set the most incredible work ethic, because you were up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and you will see the depths of the special effects makeup team. What
Kevin Yeager.
Kevin Yeager
created Chucky, produced Sleepy Hollow, Crypt Keeper.
You'll see
Pretty
nothing had ever been done like this makeup, and you sat there in that chair, and I said to you, what time did you come in this morning? You said, we usually start about 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we finish at midnight.
I would follow gypsy wagons. I know gypsy is now a politically incorrect word, but that's what they were called, with lanterns on it. I mean, I expected to see Maria Ushmanskaya there looking for the Wolfman. You know, that's what they did. Literally, they were ahead of us on the way to the studio, the Soviet studio in Hungary. And we would pass, and spring came while we were there. We went from winter into spring.
Yes.
And I mean, you know, that world doesn't exist anymore. It's modernized for the better, I believe. But yes. But it's. I remember following those wagons with these lanterns on the way to the studio, like I was in another time. Like just remarkable.
Have we got time for one more?
Yeah.
Because it's a funny story, and it was. We found this restaurant. It was an old-fashioned restaurant that was on the waterfront.
Oh God!
And this, other than the casino, which you kept trying to steal my passport, which was a British old passport in those days. Used to have on the orders of a Britannic Majesty, you must let my subject travel without let or hindrance. And you wanted that because it looked like some real James Bond.
It was so James Bond. I guess the coolest passport.
And so we go to this restaurant. It's absolutely true. And we went through the card. I mean, we ordered everything: champagne, oysters, you name it. We had the best food and everything. And there was a little gypsy trio who came around playing violins and stuff like this. Well, in those days, the currency was just paper. You couldn't swap it.
You couldn't take it anywhere.
Couldn't take it anywhere. So we had these wadges of expensive brown and green lumps of stuff that they gave us. You couldn't spend it. So I said, buy a box of $50. So they came around, they're playing at the table, and everyone was looking at each other going, you know, tip. So I reached in my pocket, I just pulled out a wadge of this money, and the guy was like looking at it. I went, so I just gave him this. I went, here, I have this. And he looked at me, and he looked, and I thought, I'll just give him 25 cents, something like that. I had no idea what to give him. And he went, and they all disappeared into the restaurant kitchen. Well, they come out again, play their second set about 15 minutes later, all very lively like this. And they come out, great, they come back and they play around the whole restaurant, eventually come back to the table. There we go. So I go, pull out whatever watch I've got left of this brown stuff, gave it to the guy. The guy goes, and disappears. So we go, well, what should we do now? We'll have the final course. The maitre d' comes over and he goes, sir, will you stop tipping the musicians? And I go, what's I tipped him, not enough. He went, no, you've just given them the equivalent of 3 months' wages.
Oh.
They're all in the kitchen, completely drunk. They're buying bottles of vodka by the caseload. They came out again, they were so mangled they couldn't stand upright. And they were playing at the table.
I remember that. I mean, this place too is gorgeous inside. I mean, this restaurant. 2 quick stories that I just remember listening to Mark. And one's a bit of a brag for me, and the other's just, again, as Mark's painting a picture of this world we were in while we were there. I went out with our producer to a KGB bar in old Budapest, and it was like out of a Jean Le Carré film, like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and it was, the KGB was still there, and it was these slightly plump, beautiful Hungarian prostitutes. There was no black people at all at this time. The wallpaper was African American musicians. That was the wallpaper because they were so enamored of African American musicians, and it was doubly exotic because they never got to see James Brown. No one came there to perform because they were behind the Iron Curtain. So I'm in there, and I remember these, and it's the last seconds the Soviets had any power. Drunken KGB guys with the Hungarian prostitutes dancing to Johnny Mathis records in the half-light with the wallpaper of the entire history of Black American music and jazz and blues on the wall in wallpaper. So surreal. And I walked out that night with Harry, and we've been drinking the good Tokay, and we stumbled down the street, right out of The Third Man, right out of a Carol Reed film. You know, in fact, I thought the world was black and white and wet and shafts of light. And we walked down the street, hoping to get a taxi. And one of the men that had been in the bar with us came out, and a car pulled up, and 2 guys in trench coats got out and kicked the shit out and threw him in the trunk of the car and pulled out. And my producer went everywhere in the world and saved the bank accounts and the bankruptcies of both Orson Welles and John Gilbert. He just said, Robbie, keep walking. Just keep walking now. Right then. Who did they grab? Just some KGB guy, obviously, and selling secrets. The other story, and then we'll let you watch this movie. You should all come closer. My leading lady, Jill Shelton, lovely Jill Shelton, who looks exactly like she does in this today. Oh. I just saw her with Malcolm McDowell recently. Jill had love affairs with 2 young men just before she came to do this movie. I think she took the role away from Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City, the role of Christine. And I discovered, working exclusively with Jill, who these young men were. She'd done 2 films, and 2 unknown boys that she had love affairs with were Brad Pitt and Keanu Reeves. So I can always share, and this will be the last thing out of my mouth, I can always say that I shared a leading lady with Brad Pitt and Keanu Reeves. Enjoy the movie.
Thank you, Robert.